Welcome to Climate Check. Today on the show, we focus our attention to Zambia's forest sector. What are the solutions to depleted forests? How can tree planting be done in a sustainable manner? We start the show by talking to Mr. Ebo Siampale, Forest Program Manager at WWF Zambia. He talks to us about Zambia's national forest cover, the 4 major causes of deforestation, and the best approach to restoring depleted forests. Mr. Siampale also touches on the need for key stakeholders to understand that natural regeneration of forests is a sustainable solution for the future.
Mainly, there are 4 key major drivers of forest cover loss. The biggest being large-scale agriculture expansion, followed by settlement expansion. You know that as a country we are growing and the population is increasing, and so we have opened up areas for settlement expansion. The third one is mining development, which is our core income earner activity. And then the fourth one is where we have infrastructure development. I think this connects slightly outside the settlement expansion. These are areas where we are opening up our country to connect in terms of network for roads, network for other transportation systems. You may recall that not long ago we had a program called Link Zambia 8000. Yes. That has opened quite a lot of inter-district connectivity. And subsequently, that has also triggered a lot of forest cover loss in many parts of the country. So those being the major drivers, there are also underlying causes, one of which is the population increase I talked about. We have also a number of technology activities that are happening now. Acceleration in terms of forest extraction has increased over the years, and several other underlying causes. These are the major threats that are causing conversion of forest cover to other land use systems in the country. There's been quite some tremendous expression of interest from a number of stakeholders in the country to try and rise up to the occasion to control the loss of forest cover by introducing a number of interventions. Some around tree planting, as pledged by many others. Some we have assisted natural regeneration models in many parts of the country. So many stakeholders are participating, including ourselves as WWF. We are also into natural regeneration of our forest estates. But there are also several interventions that connect to how we can actually mitigate impacts of climate change. Because if you check all these drivers, the agents are the people in terms of loss. So the impacts on climate change also tend to actually induce these conversions and so on. So there are a number of interventions where the value chain on people's livelihood activities are being introduced just to mitigate and be able to survive around the issues that are caused by conversion of forest cover. So around those areas, quite some significant push also by government itself. You remember not long ago we had the launch of the Africa Landscape Restoration 100, where all of us stakeholders were invited to join government to actually take up specific spaces that have lost forest cover over the years to try and see how we can actually work together to restore those lost spaces. And so a number of activities are going on. However, there's a key activity that WWF is actually going to be supporting, and that is called the Restoration Opportunity Assessment Methodology. That's where we should actually have guidance in terms of where we should do what kind of restoration. It is not supposed to be massively just all tree planting. Forest landscape restoration has to do with bringing back the functionality of the ecosystem services that these forests were actually offering before. And that's the key thing that is actually anchored to the AFRI 100. It's not really just to massively just bring up trees, but do we bring back the biological diversity in these forests? That's what is critical to be done in all these interventions we're actually proposing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about forest regeneration, which you are just emphasizing. And most of these forests are found in communities where people live. What are the compliance levels from members of these communities to allow these forests to regenerate without any further harm?
Well, I think there are systems. I like the provisions in the current Forest Act. Government has really done quite some great job in terms of providing the framework, the enabling framework within which we can sustain forest restoration, or we can sustain forest regeneration. And that is through the declaration of specific areas as community forest management areas. If you check what the impacts are actually more to, it's actually for the local people. And so if the communities come to a point where they can declare these community forest management areas in a number of places, it means the user rights for these forest resources will be transferred to the communities. And therefore the benefits through those user rights trickle down direct to the people. And that's the only sustainable way. In fact, it is actually a sustainability strategy in ensuring that we can sustain the restoration efforts, we can sustain the tree planting, we can sustain the natural regeneration, we can sustain agroforestry practices that we're actually promoting to ensure that we have green spaces everywhere. Outside that framework, it becomes weaker because trees and forests are considered the common pool resource, especially in the customary land. And therefore, even if we have all these good intentions, if they don't fall under a regulated system such as a community forest management, it becomes weaker. And therefore you can't guarantee that the trees planted today or restored today will still be there tomorrow, because people will still get back to go and harvest. And therefore the best framework that we can sustain this exercise is actually community forest management as a framework to sustain all restoration efforts we have. First of all, for tree planting, we need to be very cautious as a people, especially in Zambia. For what purpose? Where exactly will these trees be planted? And who is going to be the manager of those trees? Because it's not sufficient, it's not enough for us to just plant for the sake of planting. There is a cost associated with tree planting. It's not a straightforward issue. It is nice to talk about it, but it costs time, it costs money, it costs expertise to take care of the trees. If you are actually raising a nursery, it's quicker because you get the seedlings within a year. But the issue is when now you are transplanting from a nursery, a seed bed, to a planting space which is devoid of forest cover. The management requirements there are more intense, are more time demanding, are labor demanding, financially demanding. You need to think about how the trees you are planting are going to be managed. And therefore the best way is either to introduce this tree planting as woodlots to households, as woodlots to schools, as woodlots to health facilities, as woodlots to chiefdoms, where there are managers, where there are people who have expressed interest to take up the planting spaces and to take up the specific species that they are interested in managing. Just planting is not the best. For me, technically, I would think at the moment the best institution to take up large-scale tree planting would be Zafico, and that's the institution we need to support. Why? They have the expertise, they have the resources that are needed, the technology that is required, the management systems, they have that experience and so on, and that's why it's still actually a semi-autonomous government institution which is able to do that. All of us can plant, yes, in spaces where people are there to manage them. And all those that are into tree planting, just think about if you take 1 million trees, how many people will you require? In fact, in a planted spot, you will have at most 1,500 trees per hectare in 1 hectare. If you go to natural regeneration, you will have 10 times the number of stems per hectare. And therefore, if I'm regenerating a hectare, and you are planting a hectare, I have 15,000 trees in my hectare that I'm naturally regenerating at almost zero cost. The only thing that I need to introduce there is actually sustainable fire management. That's it. The rest, nature takes care of itself. In fact, nature can survive without you and me. But the effort that we want to introduce to help nature is not the best model. It actually costs money to bring up those trees. And by the way, your investment needs to be returned. It's like working in a garden. You grow your cabbages. You can't grow them and leave them like that. You have to harvest them at some point so you can have your return. It's exactly the same with tree planting. Zafico is planting to harvest after 25 years, after 15 years for pause and so on. It's a return going back to the company. For all of us, the best model would be assisted natural regeneration because our miombo ecosystems in Zambia can do better than tree planting.
The Zambia Forestry and Forest Industries Corporation, Zafico PLC, is Zambia's largest forestry company whose core business is to manage and establish exotic forest plantations in Zambia, with a mission to supply government with timber and other products. Irene Chipili is the company's public relations manager. She now talks to us about how the company is encouraging the citizens to venture into tree farming.
The Zambia Forestry and Forest Industries Corporation, Zafico PLC, is Zambia's largest forestry company. We were established as far back as 1961, initially under the Forestry Department. In 1982, it was privatized as Zafico Limited, and in 2020, we were listed on the Lusaka Securities Exchange, hence the transformation from Zafico Limited to Zafico PLC. So our business focus as Zafico PLC is really to manage and establish exotic forest plantations in the country, as well as supply timber products for both the national and region in general. We originally started off on the copper belts. Over the years, we expanded into 4 other provinces. So Zafico is operational in Copper Belt, Northern, Luapula, Muchinga, and Northwestern provinces of Zambia. And we are currently managing 57,000 hectares of pine and eucalyptus species in the country. For members of the public that may not be aware, pine is a softwood that we get for most of our timber-related needs, including roofing and related construction activities or furniture needs. The eucalyptus is a hardwood that we use, say, to produce a treated pose for different purposes in the country. We actually are interested in encouraging people. Much as we are Zambia's largest forestry company, we are encouraging individuals and business entities to venture into tree farming. Last year, for instance, towards the end of last year, we rolled out seedlings for any individuals or business entities that were interested, and we see that as a contribution to encouraging the forestry growth of this country. As a FICO, one of the ways in which we have demonstrated that is, aside the expansion activities from the Copper Belt to 4 other provinces of Zambia, we have every year, wherever we clear fell or harvest trees during the course of the year, we undertake a replanting exercise. So every rainy season, traditionally between December and January, as a FICO, we replant trees in the areas where we have harvested, and in the new areas where we are expanding, that's a period that we also plant. So we encourage individuals. You know, there are lots of benefits that we derived as an environment, as an ecosystem from trees, having trees within our environment. So much as we are focusing on exotic tree species, we encourage tree planting both for exotic as well as indigenous trees because of the benefits that they bring to the environment. As Zafico PLC, 63% of shares in Zafico is held by government through the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC. So based on that, obviously, all the government entities become the close partner to the corporation. We have enjoyed very good working relationship with the line ministry in this case, which is currently Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. Forestry Department sits under green economy. In rolling out the message to members of the community to venture into tree farming, we see a very big potential for even closer collaboration with the Forestry Department, as an example, because whereas the FICO is operational only in certain parts of the country, the Forestry Department is operational at district level. So we see a potential for them to offer extension services to individuals that are interested in venturing into tree farming. Beyond that, I think the scope of collaboration is very wide, including research institutions such as universities, a number of cooperating partners, the media such as ZNBC, for instance, because people need to know the benefits of protecting trees, the benefits of growing trees, and how valuable they are to, protecting our environment and providing income for households at individual level as well as growing the economy in general. We have partnered with a number of institutions in various tree planting activities, including parliamentarians through the National Assembly of Zambia, schools, charitable organizations such as the Rotary Clubs and the Lions International, and several other organizations. Our message for us as organizations, from us to organizations that are venturing into tree planting activities, that it should not be a cosmetic exercise. So tree planting needs to be done at the right time so that we are not just ticking the box of we planted trees. So we encourage organizations to plant trees at the right time. If any organization is interested in tree planting, plant it during the tree planting period, which is around the rainy season, because the sustainability of these activities is very important. So we discourage organizations that will come to us in the middle of the year to plant in an isolated area, unless it's an area that we know is taken care of, such as schools, where we know the schools would take care of those areas. So our collaboration with different institutions remain open as a corporation. The future truly does look bright. I think that if we look at government commitments towards protecting the environment and growing the forestry sector, that in itself is a very good demonstration of how bright Zambia's future is. The creation of the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, for instance, is one huge step, which is a positive development for this country. But the support that government gives to institutions such as Zafiko towards remodeling its business focus as a corporation, and the various interventions that are necessary, not just for growing the business, but supporting stakeholders that are interested in contributing to sustainable forestry management, truly is a demonstration. I think we need to break it down to individuals being interested in protecting the environment, but also planting trees. So imagine if each one of us planted a tree in Zambia and looked after it. Zambia would be greener and more beautiful than it is. So truly, the future is bright.
Let's now take you to Mpika in Muchinga province. Here we talk to Mr. Chilesho Mwila. He's the chairperson of Shikaombe Cooperative in Mpika. He explains to us the livelihood benefits of the restoration of Ilumbwe forest to the community.
Ishina lya forest tuyita Ilumbwe forest. Imirimu echitika muri forest tulasenda moboa, tulasenda mu efisabo fya mpanga, masuku, mwali bempundu, efisabo fyalekanalekana. Tulasenda ko filafuirisha, tulashitisha pamusebo palya, kabili filaleta n'obukumu mu mayanda yesu twashitisha kalakandala makala afwa bwikalo bwesu mu mayanda yesu. Muri ino forest twalikwata imingoma yo twabikamo ili 125 ya cooperative elio ifyo tuchita nga twasombola buli obuchi twashitisha kupitila kukomako ngefe yatusambilisha twalipokela masambilo ayengi ilo twashitisha uli omwine wa mingoma ilya alaleta koka benefit kupela ko cooperative kandalama kamopa kutila yatwalilila kupanga makwebo kuti ayikafwailepo na imbi mingoma ku yapantanji. Ubukankala bwakusungila mu forest kulingana abalimi besu twalila nshanya bwino kutila i forest nga yasungwa bwino ntanshinga mwayimona tasungilwe bwino twalete matema fena mumona mulutumu tutuipi elyo tulekula nomba tuleleta kukuba fimuti fikalamba. Ubukankala bwakutila fimutinga fyakulefi tukalashitishako kaboni indala meshinge sashaleta nobuyantanshi mu community yesu bwino na onse akasekelamo kuchiro kwisa temechi mutu kuputula amalasha.
Lastly, on Climate Check, we give you a realistic benefit of restoring the ecosystem. David Chandalala is the project manager for community markets for conservation, Komako West. He explains how the restoration of the forest has improved the lives of the people in the community.
This fountain is called Kaombe, and as you can see, it is what is actually supporting the community of Chilonga here in Impika. We have over 4,000 households that are actually accessing water through this Kaombe fountain. Okay. As you can see, it is actually in the middle of the forest. Today you may think this forest has always been there, but at some point this forest was depleted, and this water that we are seeing today could not come out. Yeah. But because of the efforts and interventions of conservation, the community realized that it is important that they embark and engage themselves in issues of conservation. Mm-hmm. And today we are now seeing the water, and the community now is able to benefit and have access to water. As you know that water is life.
Yes. Now, help me understand. Somebody would be wondering, why should I conserve the forest in order for me to have water? What's the connection?
Yeah, so the connection really is that in the absence of forest, in the absence of this forest that we are seeing, water will not be stored. It will actually evaporate. Okay. The stream gets dry as we get into the summer season. Yeah, but because because the forest has been conserved, then water is being stored. And they're able to access water throughout the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many people benefit from this source of water in Chilonga community?
We have over 4,000 households.
Wow. And
on average, each household has a family of 6. Mm-hmm. So we are talking of 4,000 by 6. Yeah. These are the people that are actually benefiting from this water that we are seeing here today.
This seems like, these are things we take for granted because the number of people that you've mentioned that benefit from this water source is huge. Yeah. But then somebody would not understand the importance of protecting nature. So how did it happen that you decided that let's protect this forest, let's allow it to regenerate because it was depleted before and then the water dried up? Yeah. What made you come up with this decision?
All right, thank you very much. Basically, it is a community-driven. The community, I think, after undergoing a difficult time where water was a challenge, and working together with the Komako, they came to a realization that it was important that they too embark on this crusade or agenda of conservation. So Komako, working together with the Department of Forest, sensitized the community on the importance of conservation, especially the fountains where water, which are the sources of water. And we saw the commitment now from the community themselves. And here we are today that we have this forest that has regenerated, and we have this water that is actually now flowing. Okay.
And then what are the other benefits of this forest to the community, apart from this water that we're seeing here?
So other benefits in this community, in this forest, the community members are able to pick mushroom, which they never used to. As part of their source of livelihood, they're able to pick wild fruits, commonly known as masuku, like in our language here. They are able to pick caterpillars. They are able to harvest caterpillars sustainably in this forest without even cutting trees. Not only that, they are doing also beekeeping. They are keeping bees here. They are practicing beekeeping, and in turn, they are harvesting honey, which they are selling to earn income. Yeah. Okay. Not only that, this community forest is also linked to the carbon project which the community wants to embark on. Okay. So very soon, this community will be able now to reap benefits from the carbon credits as they begin to sell the carbon.
That's Climate Check for this week. Thank you for watching.